Welcome to College Football on Tap, brought to you by On Tap Sportsnet. I am your host, Chris White, at DeGerbs on Twitter, alongside Bruno Oger.
And I'm at Bruno Oger on Twitter, so very simple for you. Welcome back, episode 2. They let us come back for a second episode, Chris. How about that?
Yeah, can't beat that, man. I'll take it all day. We did miss you guys on Monday with the holiday weekend. Everything was kind of fumbled up. Times didn't work out, but we are here, and we are going to get you 2 episodes a week from now on. And let's dive right into it. We had a fun week last week. We had 5 straight days of college football.
Yeah, I mean, we started on Thursday and went all the way till Monday. That's kind of the thing with week 1 with the absence of the NFL. We get a chance to watch a little bit more college football throughout the week. They have some primetime games on Sunday and Monday, which we'll get into. Kind of 2 of the bigger games of the week that ended up with surprise finishes. So with that, we'll kind of go into the first thing that we wanted to talk about, and that's what everybody's talking about. Coach Prime in Colorado coming out there against TCU. TCU obviously having the season that they did last year. Coming in ranked 17th, I think they were coming in last week, so a little bit lower than how they finished last season. But they come in, they're playing Colorado, a team that I thought had no shot with all these kids, 69 new scholarships we kept saying last week, and here we are. Coach Prime gets it done, and they looked great.
Yeah, I mean, I made it known last week, and to guys at work, to my friends, to everybody, Colorado ain't it. It's just a big name and a bunch of recruits. Yeah. Travis is the real deal. That kid's legit. Sanders is legit. I mean, that team is going to be pretty unbelievable. I can already admit that. I put my foot in my mouth way too early.
Yeah, so
I am excited to watch Colorado all season long.
Yeah, definitely. I know last week when we were together watching the games, came over to your place and we all had a good time drinking and whatnot. We were watching Travis Hunter play both sides of the football, and we're just impressed. I mean, he had an interception. I think he had 3 tackles. He had like 8 receptions with 110 yards receiving, I believe. Like, just awesome numbers, like numbers that you would kill for in fantasy with the 8 for 110. I mean, no touchdowns, but the 8 for 110 would, if we were playing fantasy college football, that would be some pretty good numbers. So,
no, absolutely. I think I might be wrong. I mean, we're talking 6 days ago, but if I remember right, I want to say he played like 60 snaps before halftime. I mean, it was just unreal.
Yeah, it's not something you see. I mean, that's literally the coach's son in 6th grade style football. So it's pretty cool to see a guy who's able to withstand that. I mean, I hope he's able to withstand that throughout the year, because I know that while we were sitting there having a few drinks, I instantly looked up his Heisman numbers at halftime, or for his betting odds, and I got him at 80-1. So threw $10 on that because I was just like, all right. I mean, I know it's way too early and everything, but watching this guy play both sides of the ball, and then I did look today, I saw that it is now down to 25-1. So
I got it at 50, and I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. But for you bettors out there, 25-1 for what we saw last week, probably the best number you might see for the rest of the year. So you might want to go check that out, just because
can't hurt a nice $10 bet on there. Caleb Williams, I also wasted little time putting money on for the Heisman, and because I'm a homer, I did throw a nice tenner on Sam Hartman.
Yeah, I put 20 on Sam Hartman last week as we were watching that game as well. I'm not going to throw money on Caleb Williams just because I don't like betting for USC in any sort of way, and it just doesn't.
It felt a little wrong, but nothing wrong with making money. Just a little questionable how you get there sometime.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm gonna withstand from that. But yeah, awesome week for Colorado. They have another matchup this week against Nebraska, an old rival from when they were both in the Big 12. And Nebraska last week, I was kind of laughing. I have an uncle out there in Nebraska who's a big Nebraska fan, and I didn't even want to message him and kind of laugh at him about the loss, just because I'm sitting there at work. I'm looking at my phone. I'm seeing Nebraska is they're up 10-3 with under 3 minutes left. And then I look 15 minutes later and they lost 13-10 with no overtime. And I was just like, typical Nebraska. I mean, I feel bad. I believe the head coach now is Matt Rule. I believe that's who went there. I might be wrong on this. I don't know why my mind's having a flicker. But
I believe Matt Rule was an interim. Did he end up staying around?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did, and that was the talk with Nebraska last week in his first game there this season, and they find a way to Nebraska again, and kind of feel bad for that fan base when they could get 96,000 people to watch their volleyball team, and their football team that they pack the stadium for every week just hasn't been the same for quite a long time.
Yeah, they're no longer the powerhouse they once were. But even though I did put my foot in my own mouth on the Colorado rise, I don't think I did whatsoever on the Clemson.
Yeah. So
Dabo Swinney is not it.
So that's one of the two big games. That was the Monday night game, replacing Monday Night Football for the week. Clemson versus Duke. When you hear Duke, you definitely don't think about college football. You think college
not a football school.
Absolutely. So Duke has been better in the previous years. I mean, I never seen them really be a team that was above 600. But or 500, I'm sorry. I got the dog to me. He's chewing a bag. Come here.
I do know, or at least I believe I read correctly, Duke had 18 returning players from a 9-win season last year. So while you want to be shocked, I mean, if you look at it on paper, it's really not all that troubling to a Clemson fan. At least I wouldn't think so. But you saw the players reacting to Dabo Swinney on the sideline, and that was not a good-looking locker room sideline. I mean, there are some problems there. It's kind of scary what you think he might be without a 5-star quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they were saying that I read quite a few things about seeing if the new quarterback for Clemson this year would be the next coming for them. And, well, 7 points ain't going to get done. I know that they stalled a lot in the red zone, so that could be a little bit of an issue for them. But and that could be just kind of inflating the number there of Duke getting to win, just because Clemson had many a times down in the red zone and just couldn't score. But Duke winning 28-7, it's blowout fashion. Like, that's not even a close game whatsoever. So to see Duke, and just,
I mean,
Clemson,
that was my big thing from that game, that it wasn't, like when South Carolina put up a fight against Clemson last year in overtime, it wasn't a loss like that. They got pissed on. Yeah,
I mean, it was definitely, going back to your word from last week, it's not the same Clemson. You don't think they're as good. You said it last week on the show, and week one, it showed with Duke getting the win. And now you sit there and say the door's wide open for what was the second big game of the weekend and probably the bigger game of the weekend on Sunday. Florida State getting the win over LSU, taking full control in terms of a team to beat in the ACC this year, and going out there and taking care of Brian Kelly and LSU, which, there you go. We both get a smile.
Justin, the big game style he loves, man.
Yeah. So Brian Kelly, big games, always a problem at Notre Dame. We always said that he had a problem making second half adjustments. Just never could get the job done. And here we are, LSU, big game to start the year, and Florida State just destroys them. Just was the much better team. Brian Kelly's team had a lot of hype around them. A lot of big analysts have been saying that picking them for the college football playoff. And if this team makes the college football playoff, that's just absolutely wild to me, because they just did not seem like the team that everybody expected them to be.
It's not. I don't think it's necessarily out of the question. They lost to a high-ranked, well-respected team, but I mean, they're going to have to win out from here, and they're going to have to win out big.
Yeah,
but I was especially happy with that loss because Brian Kelly finally got his win over Nick Saban last year, and I thought the big game drama was just exclusive to Notre Dame, but I'm happy it is not anymore.
Yeah,
I do want to circle back to Clemson and the whole state of South Carolina. Did you see they lost, I believe, 8 combined games throughout the state over the weekend?
Yeah, so the whole entire state of South Carolina, very depressed in terms of college football.
Yes.
Throughout the whole entire state, for all those teams to lose, an 0-8 mark. Just it's something that, like, who really sat there and put this together to look at this?
But it's a stat that's going to sit there forever.
It's just, yeah, it's just interesting to see. I mean, here in Illinois, I think we only have three major teams, 3 teams.
Yeah, Northwestern Illinois
and Northern Illinois.
That's it.
So I can't even name all the schools in South Carolina, honestly.
I started blanking after South Carolina and Clemson. I know there's one more. I'm just blanking right now on it. But there were a handful of teams I did not recognize from just a regular Saturday slate.
So was this just a number in terms of, was it the just FCS, or was it maybe it was Division II schools and everything else like that?
I was under the impression it was all NCAA. I'm not sure where they lie and who they have within like the NAIA teams.
Okay, I got you.
My understanding of the stat, I believe it was a tweet I saw.
Yeah, that's
was just NCAA.
Yeah, that's the exact same way I seen it. Which that was another big game, South Carolina versus North Carolina that past weekend. We talked about Drake May. He's a Heisman hopeful, thinking he's the real deal. That was a game that I thought was going to go well over, and it didn't. That was
a story for a lot of games.
Yeah, so it was, and I guess that's kind of comes back to the whole entire first down thing. It kind of changes the perspective of college football, and it's really tough to kind of make betting odds when you don't know how it's going to affect something. And I thought I'd take a lot of overs last week. I took a lot of overs last week. That was probably where the failure was in terms of the betting odds last week, was just I took what normally happens in college football. And yeah, the first down rule changing this year really kind of changed things up.
You don't think about it all that much with it. Over 4 quarters of a game of football, what's actually played about 12 or so minutes.
Yeah.
So you're not really thinking that these first downs are going to make all that big of a difference. But when it came down to it, it did.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot more riskier plays going out instead of over the middle, and crunch time, garbage time became a lot more serious. It's fun to watch. I'm not sure I necessarily like it yet. I need a bigger sample size, but that's definitely going to play into all the betting this year, especially someone like me who does not bet religiously. And I kind of just, throw $10 here and there and put some stupid teams together on a list and hope to win.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there, writing down in notebooks, trying to figure out the best plays for each week, listening to experts. So it's going to be fun all year, but bigger sample size for now.
Yeah, definitely. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
All right. He probably has some dog issues. As far as waiting for him, we could cover a little bit of Notre Dame, which I don't mind doing by myself because we are not a Notre Dame podcast. Notre Dame came out against Tennessee State last week. I thought they looked a little flat in the first quarter, and he's back.
Yeah, sorry. I kept on getting really distracted, as you probably noticed. The dog's over there chewing everything up, and the roommate is asleep. So I couldn't get a hold of him. I tried to give him a call, and production issues. Last week it was the chiming of the messages as I'm getting used to this new MacBook, and now this week it was the dog chewing Subway sandwiches and McDonald's, it looks like. So I apologize, but now I'm back on track. So you were talking about Notre Dame?
Yeah, I was just throwing in some fillers really quick while you were gone. And I was just saying, I thought they looked a little flat. Not even the first quarter, just maybe like the first 3 drives. Just kind of mistakes you don't make against a school like that. But obviously they came out. They did end up looking spectacular. That team, I think, is something special that It's been a few years since we've had a team like that, probably since the Julian Love year at Clemson. Was that 2017?
Yeah.
That was probably the last time I was this excited about a Notre Dame team.
Yeah, I think it's great to see they haven't given up a touchdown throughout 8 quarters so far, which is awesome. I mean, Navy being one, but normally Navy.
You don't want to discount the schools they played.
Yeah,
but
Navy
still look at the schools
puts
they
up points
played
against us, and in some because it's always hard to play that spread option. And Tennessee State, I mean, that's the first time that Notre Dame has put a team like that that's not in Division I on their schedule.
Right.
So, and they went there and they took care of business. And I mean, they struggled. It was 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. It was just like, this doesn't look too good. And then all of a sudden, I was placing a $20 bet on Sam Hartman to win the Heisman. So
yeah, while we're on the topic, I do know I think Sam Hartman has 2 spots in the top 10 for QBR so far this season, which I guess isn't too hard to do considering what we've had so far. But I saw today that he has never won at NC State.
Interesting. So, so he's probably played there twice?
I believe it was twice.
Okay, and then those were pretty good Wake Forest teams. Wake Forest was on a different level with Sam Hartman there, especially over the last 2 seasons. If I'm not mistaken, 2 years ago, they made it to a New Year's Six bowl game. So they were really good underneath Sam Hartman. Hartman was 11-1, I think, that season, and that had to be their one loss then. Possibly if they were at North Carolina State that year. So interesting to think about that. But it's a different team. This is Notre Dame.
No, and I totally understand that. That just, might change. Quarterbacks are a goofy breed, man. They're like hockey goalies or pitchers in baseball. It's a lot of head games, and you got to think that's something going on in his mind, especially as a bettor.
Yeah, for sure. I think that he's got to have faith. I don't even know if that's something he's thinking about. That might be something that possibly comes to mind when you're trailing or something like that. If somebody
right. Like he might not even know about it unless he sees that same tweet I saw.
Yeah. So unless you're sitting there looking at it in terms of like somebody on ESPN posted something, or you see some article, which I think a lot of these guys hope to stay away from that kind of stuff. At least I would if I was an athlete, because these journalists could be cruel.
Poor Kadarius Toney is getting eaten alive all over the internet today.
Yeah. Bad night for him yesterday. But yes, Sam Hartman, I think that he's going to take care of business. I'm not normally a big Notre Dame bettor, but I am going to take the -7.5 at North Carolina State. I think Notre Dame not giving up a touchdown yet, and being what they have been throughout the first 2 weeks. Great to see. And hopefully they continue to impress going forward.
Absolutely.
I think in terms of the rest of week 1, there wasn't really too many big upsets outside of that. Penn State took care of business against West Virginia.
Yeah.
There was a lot of big-time schools versus smaller schools. But the one thing that really did stick out, we talked about the quarterbacks for Ohio State and Alabama. Alabama had Jaden Milroe, I believe is his name, Jaden Milroe. And he looked really good. Yeah,
I think Alabama found their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying that very early in their game, and I was just like, yeah, this looks like a guy who knows how to handle the big game pressure. And then the other team that we were talking about was Ohio State, and they started Kyle McCord, and not feeling too comfortable and confident about Kyle McCord as the starting quarterback at Ohio State. I know they did bring in, I believe Devin Brown was the other quarterback. They brought him in, but I think he might have only had a series, if even. Might have been more of just like kind of how Tim Tebow was in that first year at Florida kind of thing behind Chris Leak. So, Ohio State not having an impressive showing at all against the team that you would expect them to handle. So it's going to be interesting to see them going forward. Lucky for them, they have a game against Youngstown State this week could
Right.
probably get to see what kind of quarterback play you have against a team like that. Give some other guys a chance if they weren't comfortable, which it didn't seem like they were, putting those other guys in above McCord.
Yeah, I mean, especially Ohio State's a big, scary system to go into, you know, being 18, 19 years old. That's a lot of pressure. I mean, a lot of people looking at you to do big things. And if you're not the guy, I mean, it's hard to get better on the spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're not walking in through that tunnel, you know, ready to go, pumped up, ready to lead your guys into battle, it's hard to get there, you know, fumbling words in the huddle and things like that. I mean, you have to be confident. That's such an important trait as a quarterback, especially in college, when you're not already a bona fide, you know, guy out there getting paid to do this. You have proven you can do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most pressure that like you could have as a younger athlete might be playing high school football in Texas, and then it's kind of like
no doubt,
same kind of playing on the same level as that's what you're going into is playing college football. It's like you get that Texas high school football atmosphere, kind of preps you for it, but you don't feel that unless you're coming from anywhere else. And I don't know where he came from, but I mean, yeah, the high school football, like it's a different level when you step in onto a college football field, and Ohio State had being as large as it is, almost selling out every single game. Tough to walk into, definitely, but you got a chance to recover this week with Youngstown State. I kind of hope they don't, because Notre Dame has them in 2 weeks now.
Yeah, Notre Dame's got after NC State, I think they take a trip to Central Michigan, and then finally the test. And I think what everybody, you know, Big Ten and Notre Dame fans have been waiting for is this game.
Yeah, I mean, last year I thought Notre Dame had a shot at beating them, and it was a close game. I mean, they played good defense. They couldn't really score. And then the following week, Notre Dame ended up losing to Marshall, and it was just like, what's going on here? But it looked like Notre Dame competed with them last year when they had a quarterback and had those things figured out, even though it wasn't open. Right. Both these teams will have some games underneath their belt, be a little seasoned. So it will be a good matchup in a couple of weeks for both these teams. But
absolutely,
figure out the quarterback situation by then.
Yeah, let's hope they don't.
And then the one last thing I really wanted to cover in terms of week one is another upset, but of the lower variety, but it's a homer thing. And it was one of my picks that I told people to bet if you are outside of the state of Illinois, Northern Illinois, beating Boston College, a boneyard victory, the 18th one for NIU. Just awesome game to see. It looked like they were going to blow it late. They went into overtime and they took care of it in overtime. But Notre Dame 1-0. I believe they got Southern Illinois this week, and then they got Nebraska next week. So, you know, if they could get by Nebraska, the sky is the limit in terms of going to a 12-0 season. And that's my hope for NIU every single year, just because they are that lower base school, and it's just fun to see them go out there and roll some of these Power 5 conference schools.
No, yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun to watch last week. The end was probably a little closer than it needed to be. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rocky Lombardi, right?
Yeah.
Michigan State transfer.
Yeah.
He looked pretty good. I mean, the team as a whole looked good, and beating BC in week one, that is huge, man.
Yeah.
That's huge for a program, and I'm sure our friends over at Huskies on Tap will agree.
Yeah. It was awesome to see them as my alma mater, and I'm very excited to see how the season goes forward for Rocky Lombardi and the NIU Huskies. You know, Southern Illinois this weekend, state school rival, should be able to take care of them pretty easily, I'd hope. And
right.
One more big one where I'll end up betting $20 with my uncle from Nebraska, straight up. Won it last time. I think I'll get it again.
And I know off the gridiron, I know you had some thoughts about Tez Walker.
Yeah, so Tez Walker, wide receiver for North Carolina, transfer. I believe he started at North Carolina A&T or North
Carolina subsidiary school.
Yeah, so that's where he started. He had a lot of issues in terms of his mental health, things like that, and ended up not playing for a year. He was a lot of back and forth, and finally was going to get his opportunity to play this year for North Carolina. With all the issues that he had, all the things that he was trying to take care of to fix himself, and make him feel more comfortable going out there. He had his years of eligibility taken away from him, and now they won't let him play for North Carolina, that being the powers that be, the NCAA. So we talked about last week, the NCAA, man, like a bunch of guys that just control too much that they shouldn't. And once again, everybody thinks they're in the wrong in this. Let the guy play. I mean, you've given all these people, because of the pandemic, another year. I mean, honestly, we just talked about Rocky Lombardi. Like, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I don't think he'd be playing for NIU this year. So it's just everybody got
that extra year
of eligibility because of it. And I mean, why can't we make the exception here for someone who may have started seasons, played 2 games, whatever it may be, but come on.
I know I read some reports of just like strictly mental health and, you know, maybe homesickness or what was going on with them. But like I had mentioned last week and in hundreds of tweets over the past decade, the NCAA is just, you know, maybe makes sense to some, a joke to me, and just too much power.
Yep. I mean, we started with the Reggie Bush stuff and then continue to find another reason to not like them. And
Johnny Manziel blew everyone out of the water.
Yeah. I mean, we mentioned that last week as well with Manziel, and it's just it's sad to see that a student athlete can't get his opportunity to play. And, you know, who knows? I don't know if he's a top tier possible NFL prospect type player, but either way, like, let the guy play. He wants to play the game. Obviously, he loves it if he keeps coming back to it in some form, despite whatever he may personally be going through. So, yeah, just not something I really just appreciate it at all seeing. And it's kind of a sad story that he's not going to get to play with his teammates that all have shown such support and obviously do love him.
I saw, Mac Brown, I saw standing up for him. And I mean, it's just crazy. I don't believe, like, at what point do you not let mental health be an excuse? But that's another story for another day, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more news story that I kind of wanted to cover before we go into our week 2 preview. Caleb Williams' dad.
That is the biggest. I mean, it's such a joke, man. I was talking about it to a guy at work today. We were like, I mean, what do you want to do? Get drafted by the Chiefs and sit behind Mahomes for the next 8 years, hoping he tears his ACL so you get a shot?
Absolutely. So a little background for those who may have not heard about this story, but Caleb Williams' dad has come out and said that there's a possibility that he might not leave USC after this year. He's going to be the number 1 QB on the board. He might be the number 1 draft pick, depending on who really needs what and who's where. But Caleb Williams not leaving USC is not something that's gonna happen. But his dad kind of like sat there and said, like, they need to fix the system. Like, it's so bad that these kids like leave these schools and then they go to the worst team in the NFL. Well, like you just like you want to go sit behind the teams that win all the time? I mean, they don't need him. That's the reason why these teams are bottom tier. Most of the time, they don't have their quarterback situation figured out. Or if they are still getting that first, second, third round pick, it's because they drafted their quarterback last year and are still in the middle of a rebuild and to build around that quarterback. And yeah, Caleb Williams' dad, I'm sorry, but come on, man. Like, that's a
college
joke.
Football, LeVar Ball. That it was crazy.
That's the first thing that I said. Was.
I mean, it seems like everybody who's like put a team like a name to a face almost. I've been seeing Cardinals logos popping up next to his head, Caleb Williams' head, everywhere, all over the internet. Is that a direct shot at the Cardinals? Is it any bad team? I mean, I mean, you got to imagine there's 32 teams. What are we thinking? 22 of them have bona fide starters that might not be up for competition.
Yeah. And I mean, we have it here in Chicago with Justin Fields. We don't even know yet. Like we're all projecting sky high, but we don't know if he's our quarterback of the future. We don't know where we'll be able to draft. They have 2 first-round draft picks next year. So,
and then I mean, you lost out on Bryce Young, but who the hell knows if he's going to turn out to be anything more than Justin Fields too?
Yeah,
they might both be jobbers in 5 years sitting behind somebody else.
Yeah, so who knows? But you go to the team that's the worst team, and it's the only thing that makes logical sense. I can't even argue a point for it because it makes my head spin. Like, where do you think you're gonna go? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you can't go to the best team and sign wherever. I mean, I think that's kind of how it works with European soccer in a way, where it's just like there's no drafts or anything. It's like, hey, you're a good player, you should sign here. But they sign those guys when they're 12-year-old kids. So
right. Big Ted Lasso guy. So I've been brushing up on my EPL.
Yeah.
I learned what is it, relegating? I learned that.
Yeah. Well,
that
was the first thing that made me like, whoa, like the Premier League doesn't even have a championship. And but all right, so we'll go into our week 2 preview. The games that are ahead. There is quite a few. Obviously going to start with the biggest one of the week, number 3 versus number 11. We got Alabama versus Texas. I think it's a 7. 7 is the spread right now, Alabama's favorite. It's going to be an interesting game, to say the least. I don't know what to expect because as much as we think that Milroe is the guy for Alabama, we got Ewers, who looks great.
I think he's done more than proven himself.
Yeah, so I mean, that's two quarterbacks. We got one that's proved himself, one who hasn't. Alabama being Alabama, they're gonna have the edge normally, but Texas is trying to find their way back. Texas is going to the SEC. It's going to be a dogfight. Texas wants to prove themselves. I think this is a statement game for them. I know that they have this every single year. They have this early game that they have this chance to make a name for themselves. And they do it this year. Will Texas go out there and beat Alabama?
I mean, no.
No.
Yeah. I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I was wrong already once. Let me start a streak on the show and be wrong again.
Yeah.
I am not a Nick Saban fan. I am not an Alabama fan. I would love nothing more than to see them drop out of the top 25 in my lifetime. Will it happen? Not sure. We'll see. But I don't think Texas is it. I think Quinn Ewers looks good. I think he's well surrounded. I'm not quite sure they're even an 11 team. But I will definitely be tuning into that one. It will be the best game of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to have the most eyes on it for sure. As we say, even with the betting segment, like it's early in the season. It's hard to say what each team really is. You just know that both these schools pull in the best recruits. They got 4 stars. They got 5 stars. They're all over. They don't really start a lot of 3-star players. Like it's the top of the top. It's just a matter of, can Texas put it together? Will their style work with them? It's going to be a dogfight. I hope Texas pulls it out. Same way as you. I do think that 7's a little disrespectful. I think we're talking a field goal or closer. That might be your pick. Then I'm staying away from it. I don't want to play.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I don't know if I'll be touching that one myself. I like money in my pocket, not DraftKings.
Yeah, but, that's a tough one to go.
And like you had mentioned, joining the SEC, it's going to change your recruiting game for them. But talking about all the 4 or 5 stars, they don't play their 3 stars. I mean, they have 5 stars on their team that don't see the field. But I saw today, Alabama has 57 players in the NFL right now. I believe number 2 was Georgia, maybe. And it was a decent-sized gap. It was 39, 40, 41.
Wow. Yeah, and
It was a decent sized gap.
it makes sense. And Alabama has a lot of guys that aren't even starters that make the NFL because that's how good their backups are. That's how their next guy up is, and it's just constant.
What was his name? Alex Leatherwood, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He was an Alabama guy, right?
Yeah,
and he just got cut 3 days ago.
He was cut from the Raiders as a first round draft pick, went to the Bears. The Bears cut him. Just looked like a guy who had it all in college and just didn't amount to it in the NFL, which I mean you see all the time with a lot of draft bust in the first round, and Alex Weather was definitely one of those. And it's kind of surprising because I know when the Bears picked him up, it was late last season. We were playing for pride, Justin Fields' growth and everything, and I was hoping that he was the guy that would step up, and having that Alabama pedigree just really didn't even get to that point or amount to it. So
right. For the next game, Colorado, Nebraska, which you touched on a little earlier, how about Tulane and Ole Miss?
Tulane last year, New Year's Six team, was the best non-Power 5 team in the league last year. Rated kind of highly again this year. They're ranked 24th. Ole Miss being an SEC team, ranked 20th this year. Ole Miss, it's a ranked versus ranked team, not one that you normally see with a team like Tulane, but kudos to Tulane putting a team like Ole Miss on their schedule. And it's going to be interesting to see, can we get that early season non-Power 5 upset in a two-ranked team matchup. So I'm excited to see. I don't know if Tulane's the same team as they were last year, but I think it's going to end up being a really good game to watch this week and kind of see if they can compete, stay with Ole Miss, or if the probable big gap in recruiting range really ends up getting to them, because that's normally the main thing when you see these Power 5 schools, especially schools that are in the SEC versus a non-Power 5 conference school.
No, absolutely. And I agree with that. Kudos to the AD out there in Tulane for scheduling these games. Because, I mean, how many times have we talked about Alabama and Georgia going out there playing, Moraine Valley Community College?
Yeah.
So it's cool to see it. It's being a Notre Dame fan, we get all of the joint a conference crap, but we're top 10 in strength of schedule every year. We're not out here playing nobody, It's not fun. I don't want to go 12-0 and not make a college football playoff because we played one ranked team and they were 23.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of like a schedule that Georgia has this year, where their SEC schedule is very, very weak. And it seems like they could streamline straight to the SEC championship game because they only have one major game that's in comparison to what they would normally have with the SEC schedule.
All they have to do is not lose 1-2 games.
Yeah. So, and that's the way to make your name, honestly, if you are a non-Power 5 school, is schedule these games. Talked about it with my homerism with NIU, playing BC, not that they're the best of the Power 5, playing Nebraska. It's an intimidating environment to go into, even if Nebraska is the best team. It's gonna be fun in that stadium for Nebraska. So it's just, if you take these games on and you're willing to do them, I mean, obviously these non-Power 5 schools, they get paid a lot for them sometimes, but when you are a good team like Boise State has been for the last 20 years, you got to put these games on there to make sure that you are thought of come college football playoff time, even though it will be easier after the next year or so. I'm not sure if it's next year that the new system starts. And
you're also forgetting about Tulane's leg up. They're called the Green Wave. I mean, it's cool as fuck, man. It doesn't get much cooler than that.
It is different besides like the 7 or 8 Wildcats that are out there. So.
Oh yeah. You don't need any more Tiger National Championships.
Who are we gonna root for? The Wildcats. Who are we cheering against? The Wildcats.
Texas A&M Miami, thoughts?
So Texas A&M ranked not highly, kind of probably getting that little SEC buzz, but Miami itself, looked good last week. That was one of the games we talked about with Miami versus Miami, Ohio. The trash talking, and Miami went out there and rolled them 38-3 or something. Like
I believe that was one of my calls too. Just absolutely piss on him.
Brett Gabbert didn't do shit. Like he was not good. For all the trash talking he did. If you're gonna trash talk, come on, back it up, man. Like you have.
I still respect it, man. I'm sure his team was pumped running through that tunnel.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't until the third drive they just started giving up.
Yeah. Not a fun showing for him though, and the fact that if you're gonna talk shit, at least put up one touchdown. I mean, at the very least. But no, he didn't do that at all. And Miami took care of business. Will they do the same thing against Texas A&M, an SEC school? Miami's always been on that cusp for the last ever since they were the dominant U of old. Like they've always been on the cusp of trying to be this team.
Yeah.
Of that 9-3 record. I know they had a good team a few years back, but it's only been one or two here and there in the last decade. And
it was that 2001 team where Miami just absolutely shit on everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like Ed Reed. I think Vince Wilfork. Maybe am I wrong?
They had on that team is absolutely insane. So
yeah, I mean it's
and criminal.
But I don't know. Like a lot of teams, I'm not sold. It's still kind of hard to judge. It's a little hard to even talk about just only going into week 2. We don't really know. Sample size is so small.
We didn't get to see Texas A&M. They played a low-level school that I can't even recall what their name was. And then I didn't see the Miami game. I was bowling at the time. Had the Cubs on, a little bit more important at this time of year as they're 0-0 in the bottom of the 7th here. But yeah, not two teams that we normally watch on a frequent basis, but I know that this will have an effect on what happens in the rest of the season going forward. So we'll see if Texas A&M is on their way back, and this is their chance for Miami to be on their way back. Are either of these teams top 15, top 10 schools? And that's what we're looking at for.
Yeah. Oregon and Texas Tech, I think, is a good one to look out for this weekend.
So I didn't look at – I got to look because I didn't really go into the overs and unders this week, just kind of staying away from it after a weird last week. I just didn't want to, even try to protect it. But these two schools normally put up numbers, and I don't know if I'm just being blinded because Patrick Mahomes used to be Texas Tech's quarterback. But these teams –
that legendary – Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield was like 7 overtime, 70-something to 70-something game.
Yeah.
That one's stapled in my brain forever. After about 18 Bud Lights, just sitting at the bar downstairs wondering what the hell was going on the TV.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious. It's honestly, Texas Tech's always been a shootout team. They had that air raid type offense. And Oregon, they're known for scoring. We say, the Pac-12 doesn't really play a lot of great defense from what I noticed most years. And I think that Bo Nix going out there taking care of business is going to happen. But I think it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be one heck of a game, and there should be a lot of points. So I'll check out that over-under on it. But I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in that Oregon-Washington game.
Our over-under is actually 69.
69? Nice.
Yeah, which I think is a little outlandish when we're talking about top 15 Oregon, who's 1-0, and unranked Texas Tech, who's 0-1.
Yeah.
So, but we're gonna see some ball slinging. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it definitely should be a good game to watch if you like points. So, hopefully these teams go out there and put on a 35-35 clinic on each other and
absolutely
all overtime.
And because I love bringing up my Notre Dame fandom, Stanford and USC have always been a lot of fun to watch for me. And you had mentioned with realignments, this is the end of an era.
Yeah. So it was something that I kind of noticed, Stanford and USC, that's an old school rivalry. They've played each other for years. There's been a lot of memorable games, especially when Christian McCaffrey was there. But over the course of time, Stanford's normally been a pretty good football school, even though they've been in their struggles of late. USC, always a really good football school. And now that the conference realignment is happening and these teams are going to different conferences, USC going to be in the Big Ten, Stanford going to be in the ACC, like it's the rivalry's over with unless they schedule each other. And I know a lot of these schedules are predetermined in terms of who's going to be their 4-9 of the year. So,
yeah, I mean, you would think it makes sense for a lot of Pac-12 teams, former or soon-to-be former teams, to continue playing each other just because of location.
Yeah, I mean,
Oregon. So any open spots on your schedule, I think you will see a lot of, Oregon, Washington, Stanford, USC, all these teams kind of sticking around with each other.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's what the hope is. I mean, I want to see these games. I don't want to see rivalries die. That was always my fear being an Notre Dame fan, is like we go to a conference and I know a lot of our rivalries die. I mean, look, we don't play Michigan every year anymore. I kind of miss that game. We don't play Michigan State every year anymore. I miss those games.
Well, I believe there are, is it 6 actual bona fide rivalries that they actually carry around trophies for at Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Purdue, the Michigan State, Boston College, USC, and Navy, I think.
Yeah. So
I mean, you don't see Purdue often. We do get to see Navy a lot, which sometimes is more fun than other times. I mean, for a week 0 game, this one was fun. I'm not a fan of blowouts. I'd rather see a fun game, but going into this year, I think that was a big, important win.
Yeah, well, absolutely, it was. And but again, rivalry games, like kind of the tradition that we grew up with, kind of something that we really enjoy as kids growing up, is the tradition of the rivalry games. And we're going to see a lot of these for the last time in terms of on a constant basis. And we're realize, Stanford, USC, rivalry no more. It's a huge spread. USC is projected to win 29.5, I think, is the spread right now for that game. And I just hope, for rivalry's sake, that Stanford goes out there and keeps it close and makes it a little bit more fun so that they could go out on a high note.
All right. Before you hop into your gambling segment, I'd like to try something new with you. It's a little fun game.
Oh, games?
I'm going to rattle off some teams, some games, some over-unders. I don't want thoughts. I just want first thing that comes to mind. I'm going to give you 2 teams and a number, over or under. You ready?
Okay.
All right. Ball State, Georgia, 52.5.
Over.
Nebraska, Colorado, 59.
Under.
Troy, Kansas State, 50.5.
Troy, Kansas State?
Troy and Kansas State.
Over.
All right. Utah, Baylor, 46.5.
Under.
And the one I thought was pretty appropriately rated that I wouldn't want to touch, Youngstown State and Ohio State, 56.5.
Over.
Really, man.
Oh, no, yeah, that was probably dumb. Yeah, see,
that's you on fucking tape now. You're stuck.
Having the quarterbacks that they used to have, and
all right, let's jump into your gambling and wrap this show up. We're rambling now.
All right,
what do you got for us this week?
So, as you see at the bottom of the screen here, I have my Twitter account on there at Bruno Oger. I do post these on Saturday morning, what my final picks are. Last week, what I posted on my Twitter account, I did talk about some bets here. I talked about some leans. The leans, if you followed, were not great. I was 1-3. I even took the LSU lean, and I'm kind of glad I lost, but whatever. And that's why I don't put too much money on it. I throw maybe a $10 parlay together, not even betting them individually when they're my leans, just something to hopefully win a lot of money if it hits. But went 1-3 in those. But in terms of the bets that I did throw onto my Twitter account, not a bad week. 5-2. Made money. I was up when I left the weekend. The first one I had was NIU +9. That one I didn't get the bet, so technically I was 4-2, but NIU +9 covered. Did not cover the TCU minus 20.5 because I was so low on Colorado. And well, should have took the plus 800 on Colorado winning the game. Would have been a much better pick than the minus 20.5. Took Utah State against Iowa plus 23.5. The final score was, I think, 24-13. We talked about Iowa or can even score 24 points to cover that spread. Well, they can score 24 points because they did exactly, but they still ended up giving up 13, so it still worked out in my favor. Fresno State, I put out there plus 3.5 against Purdue, and they covered. North Carolina against South Carolina minus 2.5. They covered easily. East Carolina, this was the Gerbs pick. Plus 36. I put it on. I put it on there. Yep. That's your thing. You know, you took the crazy underdog at plus 36. And they lost 30-3. So that's a cover. Good job, buddy.
I same day parlayed it and threw the over in there, so I kind of fucked myself. But you know, I still have it in video from last week saying take Eastern Carolina. 36.5 is a lot, man. 36.5 is a lot.
Yeah, I got it at 36, and it's a cover either way. So good pick there. Boise, Washington, we picked the over. It went over, mainly because of Washington, but it went over. And then North Carolina, South Carolina, I picked the over, and it did not go over. That was one of the losses, but 5-2 overall, 4-2 if you bet it in Illinois. Maybe some Illinois people drive over the border. Who knows? But yeah, that was how we ended up this week. I'm strictly got spreads right now. I don't think I'm going to do any over unders for the most part. At least I won't put them out there. But I did pick 9 games total that I really liked for betting. And normally I am not a huge favorite giving up the points guy. I do like to kind of pick a lot more underdogs, getting the points. Just kind of seems to trend that way. But this week was a very different week. I went with 8 of the favorites and giving up points and only 1 underdog who's taking points. So we'll start with Colorado, Nebraska. Colorado minus 3. I'm on board. We're going to take Colorado minus 3 against Nebraska. I think
that's a train you ride until it bites you in the ass.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, after seeing the way Nebraska blew the game last week, the way Colorado scores, I'm going to go with Colorado and the minus 3. So let's see how that goes until it does bite me in the ass. Notre Dame. Wouldn't normally put them on my card as a fan, you know, but I took them minus 7.5 against North Carolina State. I definitely think that they're going to cover their last 7 road games. They're 6-1 against the spread. They are a team that looks really solid offensively. They haven't given up a touchdown on defense yet. They are on the road, but I think they go in there and they handle the Wolfpack, hopefully with ease, not to make it a sweater, but minus 7.5. I think Notre Dame is more than capable at this point until I see something bad from Sam Hartman, which I haven't seen yet. So, or the defense. Also got Utah on there again. Utah minus 7. That was one of my leans last week, I believe, and actually that was one of the ones I lost. Now that I think about it, but yeah, I got Utah minus 7. Just think they're in a place right now. They still might not have their quarterback back, but I think it's too low of a number for them. They're going to take care of business. So we're taking the Utah minus 7. Virginia Tech at home against Purdue minus 2.5. Purdue lost last week to Fresno State 39-35. And now you're going to
another fun game.
Yeah. Now you're going to go into Virginia Tech, enter the Sandman.
Once you enter that Sandman, there ain't no coming out.
Yeah. You're gonna go in there and then you're gonna cover a minus 2.5 spread. I don't think that happens. I think that's the lock of the week. Virginia Tech at home against Purdue minus 2.5. That's where I throw most of my money. I hope that doesn't bite me in the ass, but that just seems too good to be true right now. The one pick that I do have that is the underdog. I took Iowa State against Iowa. Iowa State plus 4.5. So second week in a row picking against Iowa. But every year, these Iowa State Iowa games, they play each other tight. Last year's finish, Iowa State won 10-7. The year before, Iowa won 27-17, and then they didn't play during the pandemic year. But the year before that, I believe the final score was 18-17. So they are two schools that play each other really, really tight. It's an in-state rivalry, and I believe that it is at Iowa State, if I am not mistaken. So Iowa State getting points at home against Iowa. Give me the points. Iowa might win. They might win 13-10, 16-13, something like that. But I think overall Iowa State's a good pick here. It could backfire, but I think it's going to stay close. And at the very end, I mean, might lose it by 2, but I think Iowa State's the better option here. They normally are right there with Iowa and won't let them get away.
At Iowa State.
Yeah.
And just continuing with those totals you just rambled off, continuing our thrash of not touching the over with Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
They do not score points.
They don't. And that's defense. And maybe I should throw a little bit on the Iowa unders throughout the year. I'm sure it would be a profitable bet, like 9 out of 3 times, or 9 out of the 12 games this year. So I'll take a 9-3 on something if I bet it all the time. I also got Oregon -6. Like we said, it's going to be a shootout. It's at Texas Tech, but overall, Oregon, I think, is the better team here. I think 6 is a low number. Oregon beats them by like 20, I hope.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm not in Vegas doing this professionally, but that was one of the games I kind of scratched my head and I was like, who the hell puts these numbers together?
Yeah, and I mean,
it could be their reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I also got Auburn -6.5, OK State -3, and Mississippi State -9.5. So those are late games. We got some late SEC versus Pac-12 games that start at 9:30. I guess kind of prep us for the future of college football when we have ACC games at 9:30 and Big Ten games at 9:30 at night. So, but yeah, I took these games. Just wanted to kind of wrap it up really quick there with them, but I think these are good picks. I'll put them on my Twitter tomorrow morning. If I take them off my Twitter tomorrow morning, it's because I got bashful. But most likely these will be on my Twitter tomorrow morning. So if you're following at Bruno Oger, I'll put them out there and jump on your DraftKings or FanDuel or PointsBet or whatever you use, and hopefully we all make money together.
Ready for your DeGerbs pick of the week?
I have been waiting for this and thinking about this since the middle of the night, like 3 a.m. at work. I was just like, man, I wonder what he's going to pick this week.
What dumb shit is going on this week? You already know what dumb shit is going on this week. It's UNLV 1-0 plus.
Oh.
Fuck me, 37. Jesus.
Is that Michigan?
Plus 37. Until Harbaugh comes back, until we see some leadership and some wins against real teams by more than 4.5-ish scores, I'm going to keep riding this train. I know they don't play the best team next week. I'm not sure who it is off the top of my head. But if the spread's over 20, don't be surprised when you hear it next week too.
Yeah. Honestly, UNLV was the worst team in college football last year. There was something with them, and like just make sure you take the over because they're just going to give it up themselves.
Right.
I looked at that game as something like maybe I'll throw the plus 37 on UNLV. Now I have to. I'll throw money on it because it's your pick of the week, and I can't.
I would hope so. And to everybody who listened and all our friends and family who threw some money in Eastern Carolina, just bounce that right back into UNLV. That's house money, baby.
Oh, so yeah. So you're going to start your own $10 to get to 1,000 challenge basically with these teams. So
never heard of that, but I'll take it.
Bet the 1989 that you won, and
exactly
there. Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, you're all good. I was getting ready to wrap up. You got final thoughts?
that's what I was gonna say to you. It's gonna be another fun week. Like we said earlier in the show, we'll be back on Monday. We'll be doing 2 shows a week. The holiday kind of messes up and our schedules. I work overnights. Chris basically works overnights in the afternoon, so we sleep at different times and we communicate for maybe 2 hours a day, like at the most random time of night. So it's like 5 a.m. that we're talking.
Nothing like a 5 a.m. Bruno text.
Yeah, seriously. So we'll be back on Monday with the review. Probably a shorter show now. We won't be going an hour long every single time. But we'll be back Monday, and then we'll be back Friday to follow that. We'll touch base on what happened in week 2. We hope to see some crazy upsets. UNLV upsetting Michigan, stuff like that. So,
all right, guys. Thank you all. And this has been College Football on Tap by the On Tap Sports Net.
Have a good one. Thank you.